And we are live. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Honey Badger Cave Radio Nerdgate thing.
Badgerpod
This
Nerdcast
is
number 30.
number 30. We're at an even 30. The chick flick shtick. We're going to be discussing chick movies, or at least films that are aimed at a largely female demographic. I am your host, Brian Martinez, and back from my little 1 week sabbatical. And we'll quickly go around the table and introduce everybody so we can get this show on the road. Starting with, I'm going to pass the hot potato because I like doing that. I will give the potato to Cherry because I want to throw it off a little bit.
Craziness. All right, you guys. Hello. Welcome to the nerd thing. So eloquently put by Brian. I am a cosplayer and a professional naked girl, as well as a anti-feminist and I guess sexual freedoms author. And I do a thing on the internet, on the YouTube. And in fact, my next second tropes video is available now as a patron reward on patreon.com/DanaCherry, I think. And it'll be available in a few weeks on the YouTube thing. But if you want to make comments on it and do the thing with the thing, join the Patreon. And now I'll pass it off to Hannah.
Hey, I got the mute button to work right. 2 shows in a row. Somebody needs to put that on the calendar. I'm Hannah Wallen, and I'm author of Breaking the Glasses at breakingtheglasses.blogspot.com. And then, of course, I also write for the Brigade and sometimes for A Voice for Men and just wherever else. And happy to be here. This will be an interesting show. This is not usually my kind of movie. And I will toss it to Allison.
I figured you would toss it to me, Hannah. I knew it. After all, we are. I guess we're twins of a sort now.
I can hear you treading.
You can hear me treading? Well, too bad. You're just going to have to deal with it. I'm treading. I'm not going to, I be treading, you be hating, I don't care. Anyway, yeah, my name is Allison Tiemann. I guess Honey Badger Radio is my brainchild. I write a webcomic. It's an adult science fiction webcomic exploring a lot of gender and social issues. It's called Xenospora. And yes, I am walking on an under-desk treadmill right now, as we speak. It's slight incline, so it's a little difficult. I'm a little huffy. It's not just the radio show. It's also the treading. Okay, I'm gonna throw it to Mike. Take it away, Mike.
Hello. I'm not treading. I'm just drinking again. Believe me, I need to drink for this one. I recommend you all drink for this one because this is gonna be a doozy. I'm Dr. Randall McCam. I'm a man on the thing, the tube thing with the YouTube thing. I offend people more than I should, and I do cartoons that no one understands.
Actually, yeah, I have to concur with that, Mike. I did not understand your last one completely.
I did.
Oh, you did you? You don't matter.
What?
Oh my God, that was an awful thing. I blame it on the treadmill.
Of course.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna throw the potato to Rachel. Eat the potato, Rachel.
Potatoes. Eat it. I hear that you can even put fries on pizza. That's a crazy thing to do in Europe. But anyway.
But no pineapple.
No pineapple. That is blasphemy. Damn it. It will not stand. All you blasphemers. Anyway. Do you want to cover your pizza in pineapple? Make it like, I don't know. Anyway. I am Rachel Edwards, and I run a blog, and I write show notes for every week on Honey Badger Radio. And I also frequently do the thing. And also, here's a PSA. Friends, don't make friends. Go to viewings of 50 Shades of Grey. Just saying.
Did someone do that to you, Rachel?
No, I'm just saying. If they make you go with them to see 50 Shades of Grey, they aren't your real friends. Just saying.
I'd like to see them try. See 50 Shades of Black and Blue.
Yeah. Okay, well, I think that's also in there as well. So
50 Shades of Relationship Abuse.
it's a total bullshit, really.
50 Shades of people turning red over my language.
Yeah.
50 Shades of How
As
Not
I asked
to Engage
whose
in
idea this
BDSM.
was.
Okay, so do we want to? Oh, do we want to do the announcement? We have
Yeah.
a. Okay,
Yes.
all right. Yes, okay. We have successfully funded Hannah's trip to the Calgary Comics and Entertainment Expo. That doesn't mean that our fundraiser is over. It just means that Hannah's going now. And yeah, that's pretty exciting. Thank you to everybody who's donated so far. We're pretty close to fully funding Anna, and after that will be Brian and Rachel. So if you're interested in seeing us take a physical stand basically for Gamergate and anti-censorship, anti-social justice warrior censorship, which benefits both the gaming community, the geek community, the creative community, who are experiencing a lot of bullying from the social justice warriors, and also the men's rights community, because let's face it, we were possibly the first people censored and silenced by this narrative. So if you want to see us stand up physically to the censorship, please go to www.feedthebadger.com and donate. And I'll hand the mic off to Hannah, because I'm sure she's pretty excited. She wants to say a few words.
Yes, I am really excited about going, and I cannot thank you enough for helping to fund me getting there. But I really, really like to see everybody else get to go as well. So now it's my turn to shill. If you could continue to donate, everybody that hasn't or anybody that can afford to get the rest of the group there, that would be really awesome.
Thanks, Hannah. Brian, have we lost you to the void of people?
No, I am here. No, I was just giving Anna a moment of dramatic pause. And no, that's beautiful. And Anna, Cherry, we'll just say Cherry. I'm just going to say Cherry. Also is going to be going, and she's going to cosplay. Do you want to say anything about that?
I do. I'm actually working on the part of a cosplay right now as we talk. I have a lineup of cosplays that are epic and Gamergate related and awesome, and you guys should totally donate to see me in them and take pictures and have funsies. And since it's a stand against censorship, I'm going to slutty it up as much as possible. And I will, once again, my Patreon is a thing that has a lineup as a sneak peek for the patrons, but I will slip a few details that Vivian James may or may not be there, and her maybe slightly sluttier version than normal. And there is a Honey Badger cosplay in the works, mystery, who knows what that'll be. And also another character that's, to me personally, related to the whole fiasco a little bit, and also a very revealing costume. So hopefully someone tries to give a shit about it. That'll be great to take an even more active stand against censorship with our bodies, quite literally. So I'm doing lots of fun things, and hopefully all that effort you guys will reward by funding our thing and meeting with us and having fun. And yeah, so let's do it.
Yeah, donate for the or contribute to our fundraiser to take a stand against censorship, and also for having fun and leaving people the fuck alone to have fun and do what they want with their bodies. And depict what they want.
It's a fundraiser.
Yeah, it's a fundraiser. Okay, let's get to the topic, because I think everybody's tired of listening to the talk.
I do want to add something before we jump on the topic. My passport is in the works, and I should be getting it before the beginning of next week. So in Chicago, we can get a passport in 5 business days, and I already took care of the majority of that. Yes. So that's not a problem. Also, if I am blessed with the gift of being able to go, I also have a cosplay that I will wear. I have a wolf costume because I want to protect people from the poodles.
Fucking poodles.
See, I went with
or the bazookas. I haven't decided if it's bazookas or poodles. But
well, I'm going to be bringing my hat with me, and my hat looks remarkably like a poodle when you think about it.
See, he's going as himself.
There we go.
I don't go anywhere as myself. You think I'm mean now?
You should go as evil panda. That would be cute.
Yeah. All right, so let's do this. All right, we're gonna be talking about romantic comedy, chick flick, rom-com stuff, and let's open it up with a general topic and give the floor to Anna because she wrote a thing. And if you could please thing it for us, and then I will have Rachel and Mike read their things, and then we'll just open it up.
Let's thing it up. Quite eloquent we all are today with all the things. So,
well, that's how you roll on the Honey Cave Badger Nerd Pod thing.
It's also rom-coms. I mean, the brain function has significantly decreased. The patient has lost tremendous amount of cortex function. All right. So here's my thing. That's your problem. You don't want to be in love. You want to be in love in a movie. Sleepless in Seattle could not have summed it up better. The allure of chick flicks and rom-coms is complete lifestyle seduction, from the quality of the designer outfits to that comforting warm light filter they all have in common. Ordinary women crave these movies en masse because they want to live, for just a moment, in the glamour world of never having a bad hair day that doesn't comically end in meeting the man of your dreams, somehow always having both time and money and energy to live a comfortable lifestyle with frequent trips abroad, and never confronting actual problems actual people ever have. Think of these movies as Disney animations for adult women, and often teenagers. Not coincidentally, many of the film studios that produce such movies are also owned by Disney. Chick flicks are full of Disney princesses all grown up, except just as Disney never taught them any lessons on how to deal with real tangible life problems, and their parents sure as hell sat them down in front of children's television to do just that, these Disney Plus movies present you with your biggest problem as a woman is not yet falling in love into the serendipitous love with that one perfect man forever after. Not the reality of finding ways to renew the spark of an existing relationship, or finding love with a man battling custody court. Ah, but it's just fantasy and entertainment. Why taint it and make it real? I hear someone shout back. Yes, but let us not forget the immense impact of Hollywood fashion, be it in dress or attitude, that broadcast television has always had on our society. Furthermore, in lieu of observing their parents and other members of society interact romantically in our ever-growing puritanical and withdrawn society, younger generations only have digital visual media to instruct them on the mating habits of Homo sapiens and how one should behave in all the stages of a man-woman relationship. This is why these movies are so tricky and need to be made and critiqued with a broader perspective in mind. I'm not going to blame ever-rising divorce rates and on happy ending and no maintenance needed mentality of Disney and Disney Plus generations. But if we cannot talk to each other about gritty realities that we're struggling with, and television will not offer us solutions through adventures of their protagonists, then how is anyone supposed to find guidance and comfort or make a better world?
Are you ready? Are you done? Okay, good. All right. So I didn't jump on you. Okay. I wanted to give a counterpoint. You know, sometimes escapist fantasy is fine. It's just that. I think I find some of the stuff in chick flicks, the fact that it isn't examined or ever questioned, to be sort of a little bit sketchy. I don't know if there's any chick flick I've seen that actually models a woman accommodating or changing for a guy, aside from just the relationship itself. Like that is the fact that she's just granting him a relationship is the ultimate. That's all she has to do. She just has to open up and let him in. That's it. Like there's no mediation, there's no compromise, there's no learning to be a better person expected on the side of the woman. Correct me if I'm wrong. I maybe there are some chick flicks that do that, and I know that's sort of it's wish fulfillment, but at the same time, like I said, it's unexamined wish fulfillment. Nobody's saying, hey, it's a little bit insane to expect the male half of your relationship to do all of the changing, all of the striving, all of the effort, and you offer nothing in return. Just like I would say that's probably even more unrealistic expectations is expecting your partner to be a supermodel, because, let's face it, the guys in romantic comedies are probably just as good looking. So you essentially have the expectation of incredibly outstanding looks and being completely willing to change aspects of your fundamental personality in order to earn somebody else's love, and also, yeah, that just strikes me as being a little bit one-sided. And again, it's fine as a fantasy, but it's totally unexamined. It's totally nobody questions it. Nobody ever points to it and says, "Hey, that's not really fair." It's sort of selfish. And I was actually to go off on a tangent, and I can hear Rachel in the background, but I'm going to do it anyway. I was recently watching. The more you moan, the more I love it. I was recently watching. Third Rock from the Sun, and I don't know if they were going for like complete accuracy with the male and female relationships. It does relate to romance, but the teenager, his girlfriend, was the most obnoxious cunt I've ever seen. Like, she's just so arrogant, so self-serving, and then she's the one that's described as having a good personality. What is a good person? Like, is being a total and utter uncompromising shithole abuser a good personality for a woman? And then she was compared favorably to another girl who actually wanted to have a relationship with him. So I'm guessing the only differential between the two girls is she doesn't really want him in any sense of the word. She wants to make him work for it, and the other one doesn't want to make him work for it enough, therefore she's inferior. Wow. Well, number one, slut-shaming. Number two, wow. How does...
That Sally is shown as super attractive while she's like just this, like Neanderthal man creature.
Well, it's like, how is that a personality? The only personality she had was being a bitch. Like being not, and I don't even mean that she wanted to get to know him, and she was a bitch about it. She was a total bitch about it. And she expected him to jump through all kinds of hoops for something, and then she blamed him because he was willing to do it, because he wanted her sexually. Okay, well, why do you think he's jumping through those hoops? And you're putting the hoops up, and then you're fuck it. Anyway, go ahead, Rachel.
Hi, I was breathing down your neck. Anyway, I know that was... No. The thing about these romantic comedies, and I disagree that no one's commenting on it. We're criticizing it, like, right now. So, and I've heard people, they've criticized it before. Usually any movie critic will eventually go over this. And one of the things I think is kind of interesting to point out is take a look at all of the different occupations that people have in these romantic comedies. They always have, like, the best jobs. And they have, like, like, they'll have something like a nice apartment in New York. Like, do you guys have any idea? Well, you probably have some idea. But how expensive an apartment of that size would have to be? So they have, like, a nice job. They've got a great apartment. They've got good friends. But none of that stuff is good enough because they haven't found the one. They haven't found love. And the way that logic works in this universe is just completely insane. Things that you would normally consider to be, crazy in a person happen in a chick flick. Let me give you another example. There's always somebody in the film to make the person have this aha moment, this epiphany of what needs to happen. Like, oh my gosh, I've been doing it wrong this whole time, and all it took was this one person to give this bit of exposition. For everything to work, for me to fix my life. Like, you just think about these people. They've been doing the same thing for, like, what, 15 years now? And it just took that one person telling them, this is what you need to do to fix your life. Don't you wish that there was always that one person that was just wandering around in your life to tell you exactly what's wrong with it so you can just fix things? This outside perspective.
Well, I think that I'm gonna offer up another anecdote. I once read this article. It was actually a very nice article by a psychologist who started to counsel male patients. And before she counseled male patients, she actually had the whole 9 yards or romantic fantasy of a guy who's going to sweep her off her feet and solve all of her problems. And she was really, really almost obsessed about it. But for whatever reason, she started to take on these male clients, and they actually sought her out, possibly because she wasn't quite as much of a judgmental individual as other female therapists are. So she's probably starting from a better place to begin with. But in the process of counseling men about their own issues, and body issues, confidence issues, all kinds of issues like that, because men became more human and less idolized the way they are in these rom-coms, she actually became less fixated on finding the one man to fix her life, and she developed a more reasonable approach, perhaps, of wanting to find a companion who she can enjoy her life with, as opposed to a white knight to save her from herself, which is probably the biggest problem with these romantic comedies. Not only do men have to change for women to earn women, they also seem to somehow have to also save women, and that never works. And if I were to compare this to the way men conduct their escapism, men know that that's escapism. They know that they're never going to pick up a gun and throw a truck at a chopper. That's not going to happen. Or launch a truck at a chopper. That stuff is never going to happen. I think men are aware that that's just pure escapism, and it's never going to come to fruition in the real world. I don't think women are quite as self-aware about their fantasies. I don't think they're quite as, because what ends up happening is they just end up being disappointed with the real-life human being. They stay in that mental space that psychologist started in, where she just wants a white knight, a absolutely perfect, negative of herself that just supports her in every single way, saves her, changes for her, everything. And they stay in that mentality, and they get disappointed when they end up with is a human being, with foibles and vulnerabilities and issues and concerns. It gets scared at lightning and thunder, or has problems with certain things, and you actually sometimes have to step up and help him. They get disappointed with that, and they don't know what to do with it. And I think part of the problem is because, again, men understand that their fantasies are fantasies, that they exist in the realm of fantasy. They're not going to expect I guess some cases, I guess with porn fantasies, they might expect a different position, but who cares? You either can do it or you can't. That's a pretty minuscule expectation. They understand that that's a fantasy, whereas women, I don't think they do. And I think they get offended when they're told your expectations are ridiculous and totally unwieldy. And I'll step aside to let Brian go, because that was a bit of a rant. Go ahead, Brian.
Thank you. But I follow that. Before we get into the specific films that we're gonna, we're gonna talk about them all in a general sense, but we do have a couple write-ups on two that sort of stood out for us. I wanted to ask a question of the rest of you guys that's here. So let me set it up first. So films that are generally aimed at men, and generally aimed at them as the main audience, don't typically revolve around romance, although they may have a romantic component. They're usually action movies, and there's stuff about men doing heroic deeds and trying to fix a problem, rescue someone, save the planet, whatever. And then there's usually other themes about coming of age and growing up, in some of them, and then there will typically be a girl or a romantic interest that's sort of added on. Sometimes done well. Often it's just kind of tacked on. At least nowadays it is. But when men, and I'm speaking as a man myself, when we watch these movies and enjoy them, we know that they're escapism, and we know that we don't walk out with any delusions about what we saw that can possibly reflect on, our real life at all. Like, it's usually so far-fetched that it's really obvious that this is like escapism, pure and simple, and there's nothing, and that's often also sort of like explored because there isn't, when you're looking at an action movie, there isn't a lot of character development from like a dramatic perspective, and it's more like just like a vehicle to see these guys doing excellent things that we want to be like and we admire, but it's more because he's achieved these things. When a romance movie is made with women in mind, my observation, and I haven't seen a lot of them, and I know that there are exceptions to the rule, but my observation seems that the woman that is the protagonist is made in such a way that the female viewers can kind of plug themselves in and become that character. Like, they can kind of like escape through them. While, like when a guy watches Rambo, he doesn't think he is Rambo. He's just looking at Rambo. But when a girl watches a Julia Roberts vehicle, it's like the character is presented in a way that she can like become that person. And usually these women in these films are very passive in terms of how they integrate, where they interact with the world. Like, they might just be, they're just, I don't know, they're in a situation, but they're often like, really famous or powerful, or they have a high status, or they don't, but they have a lot of sexual power, like in the case of Pretty Woman or whatever. But the woman character is not someone that actually takes action or changes herself in many cases, and so when these things end, the female character hasn't made changes, just like Allison said, but the male character or characters have tried to like make every concession to get her back, because they always lose them, or they're trying to make an effort to get noticed by them, or something along those lines. Or they had like some power to be attractive, but they didn't know it, kind of like in that Rachel Leigh Cook film. I think it was called She's All That, as another example, and they just needed the right person to bring it out. And my question is that do you think that there is a reason why these romantic films don't often explore female characters from that perspective of having them realize that they may have flaws themselves? Because usually when they do have flaws, they're treated as something that guys in these films just have to deal with, as opposed to things that they might want to address, and that their worth is something that comes from, that they already have, and it's already sort of like given to them, as opposed to something that they have to earn or develop. So I'm going to give that to Cherry, because she was first up. She was quick on the draw.
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned these flaws that men are supposed to put up with. Yeah, that's generally true, unless the flaw is any kind of cheerful, quirky, happy-go-lucky attitude. As I don't remember that particular Ben Stiller movie, but there was
There's something about Mary is what you're talking about.
No, it's actually a later one where she like pees on him because he got a jellyfish thing.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, well, I mean, just there's a variety of movies where, at least recently, where they have certain character flaws, such of the more, I guess, not guy-like, but you know what I mean, like the more tomboyish, like hanging out with the dudes kind of personality, but also feminine, so they kind of make her be crazy and quirky and weird and non-desirable, while he would choose a more conservative woman instead of her at the end of the movie. So some flaws are not okay, and so basically that's kind of what it boils down to, is that what exactly are you going to criticize about a woman that feminists are going to be okay with in these movies? Like, are you going to talk about that they're too puritanical, that they're too self-obsessed, that they're not thankful enough? Look, I mean, what is it that they have that is not a white privileged woman problem? So criticizing that is going to be extremely difficult in the face of all these white privileged women who want to essentially divert any kind of attention from women having those flaws, so to speak. Women have no flaws. That's the bottom line.
Yeah, I mean, actually, feminists have criticized that girl you're talking about, sort of the magical pixie girl that is one of the dudes, and when she wants to be, but also is like vulnerable and feminine in other times. And I think that that's not really because feminists say that that's something that's made with men in mind, and that's something that men want. But I don't think that's the case. I think that that's actually because they're trying to make the girl appeal to as many females as possible. So so females can say, "Oh yeah, that's totally me eating potato chips on the couch," and then and that because we are talking about appealing to the lowest common denominator, in any direction when anyone makes a film. So, but that's my thinking. But Hannah.
I think a big part of it is women are the target audience for these movies. These movies aren't going to give the main characters flaws that aren't adorkable or otherwise presented as acceptable or beneficial because women in general aren't used to it being okay for people to point their flaws out to them like that. And they're especially not used to it being okay for people to criticize them for their flaws. It's considered rude. It's considered mean. You're a mean girl if you call someone else a mean girl for being mean. And women wouldn't pay to see those characters. They wouldn't drag their boyfriends to those movies. Those movies wouldn't make any money because women wouldn't be able to identify with the main characters of those films. And really, you did nail it. Women go to these movies to identify with the main characters for 2 hours or however long it is, and they use those characters to make themselves feel better. The bad guy character, the bad girl character has to be the one with the ugly flaws, and they'll use those ugly flaws to make the moviegoers feel better about themselves. Well, I'm not that bad, I just spend too much on cappuccino. Look, this woman is stealing other people's boyfriends, and stuff like that. It's completely outside the not the capacity, but the comfort zone, I think, of most Western women to admit that their flaws can be ugly, and that they should have a reason why they have to become better people than they are at any given moment. That there's room for improvement, and I think that's one big reason. And of course, then the other big reason is if you portrayed women as having to earn the things that women in real life have handed to them, earn other people's regard, earn other people's respect, earn other people's attention, earn somebody else's desire to be in a romantic relationship with them. They wouldn't know how to identify with those characters simply because that's an alien concept to them. Not so much that they can't understand it, but it's not part of their life experience. It's not what they're accustomed to. I mean, I love seeing a romantic comedy where the two main characters both have shitty minimum wage jobs and live in apartments with character, by which, you have to lean down on the door handle to your bedroom to get out, and you have tape around the windows to reduce the drafts, and there's cracks in the walls, and there's not enough room for a full set of furniture in the living room, or even very much furniture in the living room. And the guy has decided he's done with women because women are scum who use, abuse, and abandon men. And the woman has to prove to him that she's actually trying in earnest and not just another fake. And she's a safe bet in order to get him to go out with her. But it would bomb. Other women wouldn't go and watch that movie. They would just be like, that's so unrealistic. Why would you go see that? And it'd probably be a fairly rare thing for people to understand that, unless they decided to go all intellectual about it and talk about how unique and how that portrays what it's really like to be a woman, but does it from a man's perspective and blah 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 blah. But they would never get it as a possible comment on what it's like to be a man.
I just wanted to say something directly to what you're saying, Hannah. I think there are some romances that probably are written in which the male character was done wrong by women, and the female character has to earn his love and appreciation by proving that she's not an asshole, which is, I think that's perfectly fine. for a perfectly fine plot. What would be more interesting is if you just had a regular guy, who just needed to be courted because he's a frickin' pair bonding mammal, and that's what pair bonding mammals generally need, is to be courted. And you can engage in some sort of more of a mutual thing rather than just the one-sided stuff. And not because he was hurt, but just because it's normal. It's just a normal thing.
There were movies like that, but it's not something that gets done very much anymore. You know, there in the past there have been movies, you know, when relationships were more solid in real life. Courtship in movies was also more solid. And if you go back and you watch old black and white movies, now there's also, if you want to see a movie that really is good commentary on what happened when, as the coverture laws started breaking down and the divorce laws started breaking down and women started gaining more power in divorce court, if you want to see a movie that really comments on that, go back and find, I believe it was either the 30s or 40s, there was a version of the movie, The Women, of the play The Women. It has the actress that played Ma Kettle in it. That really tells you how things changed with women and men at that point. But yeah, it was give and take. It might not have been give and take where both sides were behaving in a masculine manner, but it was give and take in movies prior to that, in a lot of movies. It's just that today it's become very polarized because today's women really aren't. It's really they're really unaccustomed to having to put forth that kind of an effort, and we've gotten it to the point now where it's really a woman's world when it comes to, well, just about everything, but especially romance.
Well, yeah, I think I could add to that. I recently watched a very interesting film noir sort of murder mystery. I forget what it was. I think it was Deadline at midnight or something. Deadline at noon. And the relationship between the two principals, like the male and female characters, was a lot more give and take. There was a lot more of a sense of his vulnerability versus her toughness than I've seen in modern movies, actually, which is funny because it was probably in the 40s that it was written, and it seems more progressive when I look at it than what I'm seeing, the schlock I'm seeing coming out of Hollywood now, which seems so, it's always the same female characters, brittle, bitchy, entitled, and she has to be courted, and she has to, like a frickin' child, she has to be held every step of the way through the process of this romantic relationship like a frickin' invalid, and this isn't considered completely insulting.
You know, one that actually comes to mind, it's not quite what you were talking about, but it's got some elements of it, is the original Disney movie The Parent Trap. And even though the parents didn't necessarily want to get back together in the beginning of the movie, even though they were living completely separately, the one who first wanted to get back together in the movie was the ex-wife, not the ex-husband. And she begins to cooperate with the twins to try to play tricks on the fiance, the young fiance, to get rid of her. But she is doing things in the movie to demonstrate, even if it's just making herself look better and demonstrating that she can handle things that the other woman can't handle and things like that. And the movie kind of portrays the other woman's fragility as a problem. So it's something that's disappeared a little bit now, but it is something that existed in movies past.
Well, I do find that the couple chick flicks that I do like actually involve some kind of realism that is really sadly lacking in a lot of them. Like, oddly enough, I still like 10 Things I Hate About You, because in the end, it requires the girl to admit that, she was an asshole too. She was an asshole, he was an asshole, they both fucked up, but we're gonna try and make things work. Also, The Devil Wears Prada. That whole relationship, even though the relationship was a side kind of thing, what happened was, she put everything else on the back, her relationship, everything on the back burner for her career, and everything suffered for it. And she was the one who fucked up things, not the guy. She screwed up everything. God, I'm trying to think. There's some other movies that I feel are passable too. And even as much as I don't like Gone with the Wind, I kind of like it because, Rhett Butler didn't take her shit. It was fantastic. Like, she acts the way that a lot of women act in these okay, maybe turned up to 11, by the way, but a lot of the way this entitled way that women act in these romantic comedies. Of course, it was turned up to 11. She was just terrible. Scarlett O'Hara was terrible. Just there was so much pleasure in having him hand her ass to her at the end. Like, you have been an entitled bitch this entire time. The only thing that was keeping me with you is our daughter, and now she's gone. Fuck you. Frankly, Scarlett, I don't give a damn. Scarlett was a fucking cunt. I remember watching this. I had to watch it in a class one time. I don't understand why they decided that this was the way to instruct us about the Civil War, but I was like, all I could think about was like renaming the movie A Bitch in the Civil War or something like that, because that would have been closer to it. But
the fascinating thing about that is that there's actually a syndrome called the Scarlett O'Hara syndrome thing. No, real though. I fully agree with fuck that entitled little cunt. And also in the sense that she was just an opportunist in the sense of marrying one after another and for money, gold digger mentality, whole thing. But there was a whole generation of women and multiple after that who watched her in that movie and thought that she was like the greatest thing ever and wanted to emulate her. And I fully feel like a lot of things that are wrong currently that stemmed from two major things. One of them was the Scarlett O'Hara thing, and the other one was the Linda Lovelace, but that's related to porn, and that's not relevant right now.
Well, I would say that a good measure of whether or not you need to run as fast as you can in the other direction is whether or not there's like the woman collects dolls and she collects the Scarlett O'Hara dolls, or or Scarlett O'Hara is her idol, or Miss Piggy is her idol.
Or she wears her curtains. Which there's an old Carol Burnett episode. She did a parody of Gone with the Wind. And there's this scene in this parody where she comes down this grand staircase and she's got the curtains on and the curtain rod is still in the curtains and it's hanging off both sides of her shoulders. It's hilarious. At some point you have to watch that.
Yeah, I saw that not too long ago. It was very funny. Vicki Lawrence, basically Carol Burnett's fucking clone,
Yes.
was very funny in that too.
Oh, she was funny in the whole Carol Burnett show. I used to love that show. And then there's a station locally to where I live that plays those now, and I get to see them sometimes at work because we always have the TV on for noise, so I turn it to that channel. But, I mean, nobody could lampoon that like Carol Burnett.
So, we're gonna, oh, I'm sorry, Rachel, did you have something else to add?
Just one last one. Another movie that doesn't really fall into this category, which actually, like, even though the execution is lacking in some ways, is No Reservations. No Reservations, Catherine, what's her name? Anyway, Catherine Zeta-Jones' character is just a crazy control freak who needs to loosen the fuck up. And she just has that entire mentality, and it never ceases. That she's totally flawed. And in the end, she is the one who has to humble herself and give up, give an inch or two, in the relationship for things to progress. And yeah.
I got a quick thing. You were talking about the Scarlett O'Hara syndrome and how to tell a woman has it. There's a real good one. You do her a favor, and it's maybe a big favor or maybe a favor that's very inconvenient for you or whatever. If she acts like you did it because she was entitled to it, that's a really bad sign right there. That's a Scarlett O'Hara syndrome sign.
Oh, wow, I have dated a lot of those.
Jesus.
All right, so yeah, I know I've had bad luck. We'll go into the topics now. I do wanna. There is one last thing. I don't know if Casablanca counts as, or not Casablanca. Oh, that was another one I was thinking about. I don't know if Gone with the Wind counts as a chick flick by our standards today. I don't think it would be. I think it would be more like a drama or something else. Like it wouldn't have that. It doesn't have that pandering sort of tone that a lot of these other
It
movies.
was the 40s, wasn't it? I don't think they had chick flicks
Genres?
or like the kind of action films we have these days.
No, yeah.
Neither of those extremes existed back then. Did they?
Yeah, I think that it was just about telling stories, and it was more. I don't know. It was like above all that stuff in a way, but also they just couldn't do it, and like not until later. But anyway, let's talk about the first topic. So I'm going to hand the mic over to Mike, and he's going to do the reading for Notting Hill, which holy crap, nodding off.
Yeah, the kind of chick flicks I end up watching for various reasons tend to be Richard Curtis films because they're the go-to films. And the most annoying thing about Richard Curtis films is they're quite good. I mean, they're compelling in a sort of sickly sweet sense, if that could be called good. The way it's all rather posh and well-spoken does nothing to refine the sugar, so to speak. It just repackages it in sort of uptown department store wrapping paper, whimsically asymmetrical bows. But whenever I happen across a Richard Curtis film, I do find myself wanting to know what happens to these characters. I cannot stand any of them. These characters are either unrealistically chiseled or cartoonishly oafish. And should I ever meet them in real life, I'll probably embarrass myself by poking at them to make sure they're not made of cheese and porcelain. But I can at least say there must be something well written about it. There must be. As soon as a Richard Curtis film comes on, I don't feel like throwing him out of a window. Just his characters. I suppose there's not much more you can ask of a writer than to be less defenestratable than their creations. I mean, we're going with Notting Hill as an example. It's remarkably difficult to describe the plot of Notting Hill without sounding pedestrian. It's the story of a woman who is a famous actress and a man who is a bookstore owner and not famous, falling for each other. The plot is just this series of ordinary but awkward events that one would expect to take place in that dynamic. She's not sure, then he's not sure, then she's not sure, and blah. And okay, not every story has to be set in space or in another dimension. There is something to be said for relatable simplicity. If the world you're building is new and exciting and alien, then your performances don't necessarily need to be quite so relatable. And if the world you're building is the same boring world you see every time you look out the window, then your performances had better be relatable. I don't find Hugh Grant or Julia Roberts particularly relatable, and I don't think I'm alone. They're not like Gary Oldman. They don't transmogrify. When Hugh Grant is in a film, the name of his character is Hugh Grant, as far as we're concerned. And in Notting Hill, Julia Roberts might as well actually be playing herself. At no point does it feel like anything but Hugh Grant and Julia Roberts doing acting at each other. And these are supposed to be the relatable performances that save us from the mediocrity of the setting. And I think this might be what makes it so compelling, yet so simultaneously so defenestratable. If Notting Hill starred two completely unknown actors, it would never get past the first pitch. Romantic comedies aren't about the setting, they aren't about the world, they aren't about ideas, and they aren't about events. They're about people and their faces and their egos. You don't start with rom-coms, with chick flicks, you don't start with a story and then say, who shall we put in these roles? You start with the most famous people you can afford and then say, what shall we make them do? It's basically the market forces smushing two of their favourite dolls together and saying, now kiss! So of course it's compelling, but only because of the novelty of having expensive toys all smushed together. This seems to be what a chick flick is. At least that's a fairly simple answer. It's a rom-com gone too far. a jock flick is what you might call an action movie gone too far. Like a Michael Bay film. A cacophony of incoherent and indiscriminate action without a shred of honest human interaction left anywhere in the proceedings. A chick flick is the opposite. A sentimental smearing of sweet nothings. The unlettered essence of human smelted down until not a shred of thrilling action is left anywhere in the proceedings. In both cases, it's a simple, generic guideline taken to an absurd point at which it alienates at least half of all humans. You must admit it's an interesting experiment. It just continues to boggle my mind that it's an experiment that can make so much profit. Go ahead and discuss.
Okay. Well, so I watched Notting Hill last night, and I came to the realization that I haven't seen very many movies with Hugh Grant in them. Hardly any at all. I didn't even know what his British accent sounded like. But I think that you have made a very good point when you said chick flicks and rom-coms are sort of like the rom-com is the genre, and chick flick is on the far end of that genre, where it's something that a romantic comedy is something that I can enjoy, but a chick flick I cannot. Because it's just...
And most women can't enjoy chick flicks either. It's a certain breed of woman who, you know...
Yeah, and then on
a certain breed of man who enjoys Michael Bay films, that's admitting.
Exactly. I was just going to say, it's sort of like saying, you know, Notting Hill is to romantic comedies what the Fast and the Furious movies are to action movies or chase scene films or whatever the hell those movies are supposed to be. So, you know, it's sort of like far end, like let's, you know, have a bunch of buff guys driving fast cars, a lot of explosions, and rap music featuring the musicians that are in the fucking movie. And we'll call that a film. And most people will say, well, how are 7 of these being made? Well, how is Julia Roberts getting work? So, but the thing about Notting Hill, I made a list of grievances.
Good idea.
So, okay, I gotta go through this really quick about Notting Hill specifically, okay? But I think that the thing is that there were some things in the film that I genuinely liked, but they were characters that did not get nearly enough screen time. They were seriously like the Hugh Grant's family I found more interesting than the relationship between him and Julia Roberts, and even they were a little bit on the flat side. So let me go down the list though. First of all, Hugh Grant's character had a clueless, disgusting, and idiotic roommate that was I guess he was just supposed to represent the worst things that men could possibly be, or he was just Welsh, and I'm not sure which one, because I don't know enough Welshmen. So, but they did make a point of saying that about him.
Oh, you cheeky bugger, we'll get you for that, we will.
Then there was a shoplifter who was another man. Like, basically every man that wasn't Hugh Grant in the movie was flawed or ugly or poor or just sort of nasty, okay? So there was a clueless shoplifter. There was a man. There was his co-worker who was an idiot. And even though Hugh Grant appeared to be the most he was sort of like awkwardly charming, you know, didn't know he was, like, no, for whatever reason, he was invisible to most people, even though he was clearly, you know, he's a good-looking guy with dimples and all that. But he lived like a filthy bachelor. Like, his pad had, like, food everywhere, and that might have been his roommate, but it didn't seem like he had a very good handle on his roommate situation, so he just kind of let that other guy like run roughshod over everything. He also seems, I don't know, like, I don't buy any of his awkwardness, his social awkwardness. I don't buy it for a second in that movie, and it just doesn't seem to add up. He works in retail. He talks to people all the time. You would think he'd be better at doing it. There is now Julia Roberts' character. Holy shit. Not only was she my least favorite character in the film, for a number of reasons. One was that she literally came to London to work and decided to have a fling or at least fool around with a guy that she had just met on a whim, even though she had a boyfriend played by Alec Baldwin, which is unfortunate that we didn't get more of him because I wanted to know who this guy was. So she's literally being unfaithful to a man and also being an emotional, like, she was like an emotional line of crack or line of coke or whatever because she couldn't, she was just too much baggage. Like, I just couldn't cope, and yet Hugh Grant's character was so obsessed with her. Like, he couldn't think straight. He couldn't act right. You know, like she just had all this power over him. She, like Anna still complains, or Anna is the character that Julia Roberts plays, by the way, who I would only remember because I wrote it down. Otherwise, it was just Julia Roberts playing herself in the movie. She is somehow a victim of her fame because she basically talks about it like it's not only nothing special, but it's something that she has to wear like the Scarlet Letter. Like, she's a millionaire and she makes movies and everyone knows who she is, and oh, the burden of this fame and power and fortune. No way would a male movie star be able to could we write a story about that and have the same amount of sympathy be given. There's a scene where she's having dinner with Hugh Grant's character. I think his name is William, because if you can't come up with a name for your British character, just name him William.
Or Charles.
Or Charles, right. And there are some guys at another table that are discussing Julie Roberts' character, the actress, and they're all making these, sexist remarks and what they do to her, and like it's supposed to be guy talk, but it's so magnified and it's kind of hard to believe. And of course, she's being made to be uncomfortable, and then Hugh Grant gets up and he's like, I'll take care of this, and of course he doesn't because he's awkward and, like not really good at standing up for himself and kind of spineless, and so they immediately say, what are you, her father, get out of here. And then she goes over and stands up for herself and makes fun of their penis size and then wins the day. And they're just, he like takes her in. She's completely hard to predict, and she just does shit when she wants to and fucks with everybody in her life. She controls people, and yet he wants to be with her. And then and he's shit tested over and over and over. And when everything ends, they end up together, and I don't see what the basis of their relationship is. Like, there's nothing that it's based on other than clearly just sexual chemistry. That's the only thing that I would even confess that could be a possibility. So, and this is sort of like why that movie for me is like the Michael Bay of romantic comedies, or romance film, or whatever you want to call it, because I didn't laugh once, and I was trying. I really wanted to. So I don't know who's next, but I'm going to leave it at that for now.
Well, you touched on two very interesting points briefly, and I'd like to talk about more in terms of chick flicks. They're very ubiquitous. One is the threesome, the love triangle thing. There's very frequently two guys fighting over one girl. That's like 4 times out of 5 is going to be in a movie. And beyond that, there's this idea that a lot of girls, like even me, like even my generation, it goes that far back, grew up on this idea that, oh, look at this totally controlling, like, I don't know if you guys watch Naruto, but there's Sakura. She's like a total fucking bitch. And he wants her for whatever reason. And that's like a thing. That's a huge trope. That's very pervasive in a lot of television, that there's this horribly bossy, just someone who you really can't stand, like micromanaging your life and being mean to you at all times. But you're supposed to love this girl and supposed to find her somehow like the greatest thing ever and wanting to get her. So people, watch this, girls watch this, and they're like, oh, so I'm supposed to be like this. And that's what guys want. And that's all the characters that they seem to want, is that one horrible bitch who doesn't seem to like them. Okay, got it. So then they don't like that. And you wonder what has happened to women. Well, that's kind of one of the things that has happened.
I'm just going to say that But the reason I suggested Notting Hill is because it was one of the few romantic comedies that was so incredibly forgettable that I only remembered like one thing about it. That the Welshman had a funny shirt. And then it said something like, "You're the most wonderful, beautiful," something, or whatever. And then on the back it said, "Fancy a fuck." And it was so forgettable, and I think I remember the chemistry being just so empty, just that was worth mentioning in itself. But and the interesting thing is that
before you go on, I have to reiterate that point. Notting Hill is so forgettable. I remember two things about it. The fact that Hugh Grant was in it, and that there was a bookstore of some sort. That's it. That's all I remember.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Rachel.
Also that Shania Twain had like a really annoying song as part of the soundtrack.
I didn't even remember Julia Roberts. I did not even remember that Julia Roberts was in there. But that completely slipped my mind.
But yeah, it's probably one of the most forgettable chick flicks of the 90s. But an interesting thing to note is there is actually a Hugh Grant romantic comedy that I like. And this is going to be interesting because you're going to have to go back to find a copy. It's going to be difficult. It's a movie called Impromptu, and it's actually historical. It's vaguely vaguely based on the relationship between George Sand and Hugh Grant. George Sand being a female writer who travels under a pseudonym and dresses in men's clothes and is very non-conventional. And he's like this very even though he's not like hardcore standing up for himself, he's very sickly. He plays very sickly Frederick Chopin, and but he still has like balls to tell her off, like, listen, like, this is incredibly out of line. Like, you're being ridiculous. I want nothing to do with you. And then the relationship just progresses over them writing letters to one another and things like that, and eventually wearing each other down. But I mean that's the kind of that's something that is just missing from ever since Hugh Grant got really typecast in doing all these romantic movies. He plays the same sort of awkward, non-threatening kind of guy in every film, and that's the thing about these romantic comedies. These guys play really non-threatening motherfuckers. And so, of course, they come off as awkward because that's the whole appeal. The appeal is that he's approachable, meaning that because he's non-threatening and approachable, you could insert yourself into that situation. And it's just so ridiculous. It just annoys me so often that they do this. The same non-threatening guy who doesn't take charge of his life, which is why I like Shaun of the Dead. It's the best romantic comedy ever. Just saying.
It's funny that you should mention that Hugh Grant was almost like he's sort of typecast to be this guy that other guys could put themselves in the shoes of. Except for the fact that most of the time when guys watch films, they don't do that. Like, we don't usually do that. We just see him and we're like, dude, stand up for yourself. She's fucking up. Like, call her on it, or whatever. And then there's other things that I think that most men are pretty astute when they see this stuff, and they think to themselves, that would never fucking happen. And these are the same guys that watch The Rock and see like a 60-year-old Sean Connery roll underneath a furnace and not get burned alive, and we're like, that's okay, and yeah, like when I saw Notting Hill, and I thought to myself, wait, so an actress that gets paid millions of dollars per film is going to fall head over heels for like a guy who runs a failing bookstore that only sells travel books, and she's totally going to fall for him. And not only that, but if they get into a spat and she storms out, which she does at least one time, even though it's not his fault that she's famous and the paparazzi are looking for any excuse to take photos of her in some kind of scandal because she's always getting involved with them because she kind of like creates trouble for herself, but she projects and blames it on him and then runs away for a year or at least a good amount of time and then comes back looking for him. That never happens. Usually, and I know that I might get some shit from you guys, and if I do, that's fine. But usually, if there is a dramatic and painful argument or fight, and a girl walks out on the guy, and he doesn't chase her, she's gone. She doesn't go back. She flips the switch, and it's over. That never happened. She doesn't come back looking for forgiveness. She doesn't apologize. That may happen in some cases, but generally it does not happen. I have never had that happen, and I've never seen that happen in the real world. Another thing is, you mentioned the love triangle, Anna, and I do see that happens a lot in films because there's something about a girl being like the center of attention in these romantic comedies where you have like multiple guys vying for her, and there's usually one that's the better choice and people root for. In the case of this film, though, Alec Baldwin is literally in it for like one scene. He insults Julia Roberts in like sort of a passive way that he doesn't realize he's doing, and then you don't see him again. He just sort of shows up to be a foil and make Hugh Grant realize that Julia Roberts was just like taking him for a ride, and then Alec Baldwin leaves. We don't see him ever again. He never comes back, and that whole thing just sort of drops off. So, and that's the end of that bit. And Hugh Grant he seems to forget that she did that. Without thinking to himself, if she would be willing to do that with him, that she might be willing to do that with me. That never happens. So, but I'm sorry. Go ahead, Hannah, if you wanted to add to that.
Okay, something funky's going on with my mute button. Let's hope it stays where it is until I'm done talking. But I wanted to speak to your earlier point about the girl not coming back, and after a huge emotional falling out where something bad has happened and everything. That the reason that doesn't happen is entitlement. She's entitled to being chased, or at least she feels like it. And if she does come back, she's not going to come back apologizing. I have seen girls come back, and when they do, it's ugly, and it ends up with this whole threat narrative manipulation thing where they get other people to engage in either proxy violence or other proxy abuse against the guy to punish him for not chasing her down and apologizing to her instead of the other way around. And in the worst case scenarios that I've seen, it's been women actually using the court system to attack their exes for moving on after a catastrophic breakup. So that's, which you don't really see that in this kind of movie. Once again, it's one of those things women wouldn't want to see that portrayed because they don't want to identify with that. That's ugly.
Yeah, I think that another reason why in real life usually when there is a large relationship breakdown or just a fight that ends up with people being separated for a while, I think that in my experience, when a man breaks up with a woman, or if a man and woman have a breakup, the amount of effort that it requires for a man to recover from that, at least like to get back out there, there's like a higher risk because we live in a culture where men propose and women dispose, right? So if a woman wanted to go out and just like if they chose to and they wanted to just go out for the weekend and like get laid as often as possible, and a man also wanted to go out for a weekend and get laid as often as possible, odds are the woman is going to be a lot more successful because guys, the market value of dick is really, really low, and it's because it's really, really high in supply, and but the market value, the stock on pussy is much higher, and so it's a lot harder to get, and this is just the way it is, and this isn't this is just the reality of that, in my opinion. So and yeah, when a guy who wants a relationship and a girl who wants a relationship from someone loses it, if there's a risk that the relationship might end, a woman is already thinking about how she can replace that man, and she can in a relatively short amount of time, so there isn't that much that's being lost. But a man risks a lot more because it's a lot more difficult for them to fill that gap. And I think that's one of the reasons why I find it very difficult to believe that someone as beautiful as, I mean, not that I think that Julia Roberts is beautiful, but she's supposed to be in the film. Someone as beautiful and as powerful and as high status and as rich as her would feel like she needed to come back to this plain guy, supposedly, who works a very low status job in a small part of a British neighborhood, that he needs to be the guy. Like, the odds of that are so incredibly slim that I'm wondering, who is this supposed to be a fantasy for? Because men are going to be like, that's never going to happen. Maybe there's something attractive about someone as sort of who is like this. I don't even know what he's supposed to be. I don't know. But Hannah, go ahead, speak to that.
Well, remember what I've spoken about before, related to how we teach our sons and daughters to value themselves and to value other people, and how I've talked about, we spend too much time teaching girls to base their self-image, their value of themselves, on other people's responses to them. And even though this is not necessarily the only thing that contributes to her value, there are a segment of women that will judge their value based on whether or not a man gets over them after a breakup, whether or not a man can move on, and whether or not he pines over them instead. And that does lead to, you have to redeem your value by proving that he still wants you even though there's been a breakup. And you do see that a lot. That does happen quite a bit, where the woman or the girl has to find a way to prove that the guy still wants her, or has to make him still want her, even if she's not interested in him anymore. And if she is still interested, then she has an even greater motivation for that. I don't think that a girl would go back and apologize necessarily. And see, this is a movie I don't think I've ever seen this movie. It could be that it's just so forgettable that I watched it and I don't remember. But it's not my kind of movie, so I probably didn't. But so I don't know how the apology took place in this. But
she just kind of threw it out there. Like, when she did apologize, but she just kind of was like, "I'm sorry about the other day," and he was just like, because he would take anything. Oh, that's perfectly all right. He just took it. So.
But yeah, it may be for the female audience. It may be that that's seen as her redeeming her value, redeeming herself.
I think she said, I'm just a girl standing in front of a guy asking him to love her, or something like that.
That was the big line towards the end, where he really tried to, and that was I think the closest that he comes to standing up for himself to a degree, because she does bring him a gift and she says, "I'm just a girl," because there's many times in the film where it appears as though her concern for her image is higher for her concern for him. So there's many times where this sort of comes about. She makes him meet him by coming in and pretending to be a magazine, and he has to awkwardly get through an interview without knowing what he's doing, and then this sort of, I mean, it's painful. It is painful.
In a way, you come into the film assuming that Hugh Grant is the protagonist, that you're supposed to relate to Hugh Grant because he's the normal person and what have you. But then once you get to that point and she's saying, "I'm just a girl," I was talking to a guy today. "Oh, I see. You're supposed to relate to the movie star. Yeah, it makes sense now." Okay.
And even then, she's making a sort of ultimatum. I mean, she doesn't say "or else," but she says, "I'm just a girl standing in front of a boy, asking him to love her." And that's the line of the movie. That's the big one that gets, oh my God, tears start flowing, the fucking popcorn comes out, the bonbons, whatever. But the thing is that at no point does she say, "What do you want?" That doesn't come up. What do you want? Because he says, "Well, this is why I can't do this. My heart is not mature enough to deal with all the shit that I've been going through." And she's like, but I want you to love me. you know. So it's almost like I didn't hear that because you didn't give me what I wanted. And that's you know, like that's how painful this is to watch.
Can I? Yeah, I'm going to offer a contrary opinion, a contrary interpretation of this. Now, first of all, baby steps. If I'm correct about this, because I haven't watched this in so long, and my memories are very, very slim. Like I said, all I remember is that it involves books and Hugh Grant.
I just did, so you know, my memory, it's still fresh in my mind.
Okay, so but let me offer a counter observation. If she is actually demonstrating that she cares more about him than her image, and she's actually going out to try and patch things up, even if it is clumsy and stupid because it's Hollywood writing it, and yeah, they're not going to get it right. I mean, it is sort of a movement in the right direction of female accountability and the expectation that you do something in a relationship, that you're not just an object that's saved, and or you're not just something of worth that's saved and sacrificed for, but that you actually have to make some sort of effort. And interestingly enough, make some sort of effort despite being supposedly attractive within the universe and also being a millionaire. Make an effort to care about and, dare I say, court the object of your affection. I mean, that is a movement in a positive direction, regardless of how clumsily done. I'm going to throw that out there. Silence.
One other thing about that is that in the movie there are lots of other male characters that hit on Julia Roberts in some capacity, and she dismisses them like it's almost like she like they're like small mammals that just happen to be close enough to lick her boots, and then she sort of like says, "Oh, that's cute," and like even so. This is another thing that happens. Like she's so far above everyone else that she gets to pick who she wants, and that person has to basically feel blessed to have been chosen, and she gets to do it on her terms because she can do it while cheating with another man and like you know doing other things and showing up at his place whenever she feels like it, which is the stuff that happens. And he has to be grateful. And she, you know, she goes with him to his family's place and all this, and they can't, like, they got to know who she is. But she also wants to present the idea that she's really modest and that she's just like everybody else, or she really wants to be, and that her job is so hard, and you know all this stuff that we have to just kind of take at face value and accept. Did you have a question?
Yeah, I mean, regardless of how much choice she does have. I mean, ultimately, she does choose him. So, and you're saying you don't know why. That there's no real indication why she chooses him. Maybe it is because he didn't run after her. I don't know.
Well, the thing is, though, he really knew who she was. Like, he found her really famous. Like, there was okay, so emotionally, he was obsessed with her to some degree. And when he got to meet her, it was like a dream come true. But he did not fawn over her, and he did not, you know, like because he was playing himself in the movie. I mean, maybe Mike, did you see it recently? Can you give me
I roughly remember what happened. This wasn't ultimately. This was, I think, halfway through the movie when she said, "I'm just a girl talking to a guy," whatever, and that's roughly halfway through the movie. And then Hugh Grant says, "The term is hard," or whatever he says, and then she buggers off for like 6 months, I think, and then there's the period in between, and then there's the line that the one person says to the protagonist that suddenly makes it, like Rachel was saying earlier. There's that line in this film, only it's said to Hugh Grant, and it's the one line that makes him realise that he needs to chase the woman again. That line is, of course, "You daft prick."
Yeah. The roommate has a moment of clarity and gives him the best advice he's ever given anyone ever.
And it's "you daft prick." Yeah. You let her go when after she did that impassioned speech about being a girl. You daft prick. Go on, run after that famous woman. You know. So the morals, you know, if the moral ever was there that that she should have, taken agency, then it got somewhat lost, and
I can see
the
that.
Welsh drunk saved the day.
Do you want to move on to the next topic, though?
Yeah,
Or-
we'd almost
Yeah,
much on to the next person.
Okay.
Yeah, let's do it.
One of these days we're gonna have to talk about There's Something About Mary, because it's a fantastic movie. But
Okay.
but we are gonna talk about The Bachelor. I entitled this The Bachelor, or How to Become MGTOW in 1 hour and 36 minutes. The Bachelor is the tale of how a man named Jimmy Shannon got bullied into marriage by everyone in his life. The film portrays men as wild Mustangs in love with freedom and the endless pursuit of women, men who see themselves as infinitely powerful beings who answer to no one. But in this film, these Mustangs are not infinitely powerful. Jimmy Shannon sees marriage and the call of wedding bells as a human sacrifice of sorts. The end of fun and freedom. Jimmy Shannon, the owner of a small billiards company, fears this. He watches the men around him being metaphorically roped into marriage and forced into commitment. But soon, Jimmy too finds himself in a committed relationship with a woman named Anne, who at first enjoys his laid-back relationship style. However, the two find themselves at a relationship plateau after she catches the bridal bouquet at his best friend's wedding. His business associates, as well as his grandfather, are glad to hear of his plan to propose to Anne at a fancy restaurant, which goes badly when his proposal sounds more like an admission of defeat rather than a profession of love. Learning of his failure, his crazy grandfather drops dead, leaving Jimmy in an impossible position. The will stipulates that Jimmy must get married by his 30th birthday, which happens to be the next day, or lose his company and his giant inheritance. He must stay married for at least 10 years and produce offspring. Nearly every man around him suffers their marriage because they express that they too were obsessed with the kind of freedom that came with being a bachelor and the endless pursuit of women. So even in his second proposal to Anne, she turns him down flat, knowing that he really isn't interested in being married and settling down. Faced with this failure and knowing that his employees would be jobless should he fail, he attempts to woo his past girlfriends in hopes of finding one that will marry him within 24 hours. With everything from the stereotypical tough girl to the bookish college feminist, Jimmy finds himself wanting Anne more than ever. The film climaxes with his friend placing an ad in the paper asking women if they'd marry Jimmy for his $100 million inheritance. So, like clockwork, a church fills to the brim with insane gold-digging women who all want their happily ever after. The women become unruly when they realize that none of them are going to be his bride. Jimmy finds himself running from a stampede of angry women in bridal dresses, and from the ashes of their broken dreams, Jimmy manages to put together a wedding last minute to Anne after an enlightened talk to a priest. As the bride riot reaches its crescendo, Jimmy and Anne tie the knot, ending with what is the single most telling moment of the film. Anne says to the brides without a hint of irony, "Can't this be my day?" The day clearly doesn't belong to Jimmy, who has driven himself crazy for the last 48 hours under the threat of financial ruin. No, it belongs to Anne, who had no problems with things being laid back until the moment they went to a fancy restaurant for the proposal. Anne, who knew the man that she'd been dating for 3 years and expected him to be different than he had been all the rest of the time. Who needed him to humble himself before she accepted his proposal. Who had not considered how much he suffered to get to that moment and needed to see a visual representation of his pain in that sea of brides to understand what he was going through. The brides are a representation of all women who Jimmy believes he is missing out on by getting married, each of them only concerned with their dreams coming true. But it is only through Anne's impassioned speech that they decide to see reason. Through chick flick logic, a man who hates the idea of losing his freedom changes his mind and gets forced into an insane arrangement. But that's fine, because Anne got her proposal and her day. This film's message seems to be not that marriage is awesome, but merely that it only serves as a protection from a sea of crazy bitches who all want a man's money. It's depicted as a lesser evil, which is somewhat better than being trampled to death by crazy women. In any other circumstances, a man would say, fuck it, and move on. But because this is a chick flick movie, because this is chick flick movie logic, this doesn't make you want to run away from relationship screaming, and instead you get that moment where the audience goes, aww, and everyone lives happily ever after. Discuss!
Oh, all right. So, the Bachelor is another example of a movie that I don't know who we're supposed to relate to, because it's again, if you're well, okay. There's a few theories I have. One is it seems like it's supposed to be a date movie when you're trying to drop your boyfriend a hint by not, about getting married, perhaps, because you have this guy who is sort of like, he wants to stay single, or at least he's in love with the girl and he wants to be with her, but he's just not sure about pulling the trigger on the marriage part because he likes the freedom, even though he is in a relationship and he had been with her for 3 years monogamously of his own free will. So it was almost like a marriage, except for the marriage part. So there was clearly an issue he had with taking that step. So basically, the film presents him like he's the perfect guy, except he's not willing to commit to that level. And he's the character that we spend the majority of the film watching, and he's also the one that experiences all of the tension and the drama and the twists and turns. Meanwhile, Anna gets to pretty much just sort of react to his buffoonery and be mad at him and gossip with her sister while they, just sort of hang out. Or Anne, yeah, I'm sorry, not Anna. Anna, you're fine. That's not you. But and he's got these friends, and they're all married, and it all looks, it's all supposed to look like it's this terrible fate. And he goes to see all these girls, and these girls he used to date, which are of course extremely varied. And you wonder, what did they have that he could have dated so many different kinds of girls? Then what was their connection? Normal, and clearly it could only have been sexual, and maybe that's what he's sort of walking away from. Interestingly enough, Sarah Silverman played the role of the feminist character, and she when he meets with her, and she says she's talking about. She basically spits all of the buzzwords and stuff. And the only thing I could think of is if you're playing the bookish feminist character that dated this guy and probably fucked him, then how does that apply to what your beliefs are? That doesn't seem to gel, and I think that they were just putting a bunch of stereotypes in there because they didn't really want to actually write a bunch of characters that were sort of interesting. So you had an overly clingy girlfriend, and you had the feminist girlfriend, and there was a the super tough cop girlfriend, and or whatever, and there was a what was another one? I don't know. There was the chick in the stock market that was the go-getter. So you had all of these angles, but they were not complete people. And Anne was supposed to be the perfect one, and she was unattainable for whatever reason. And they had another magical priest moment. That's sort of where everything comes together, and they're on the boat, and the priest says, "Well, I was married," and he tells them the story. It's the guy from Babe, That'll Do Pig. I forget his name. And he gives Chris O'Donnell's character the final piece of advice that he needs to put everything together. And so my thing is, it seems to me that this movie is supposed to be something that guys are supposed to watch and learn something from. But what I don't understand is that what is that lesson supposed to be? Because if it is supposed to be that if you have $100 million, then it's going to be really easy for you to find a wife. then I don't know that that's a lesson that I want to learn. And that if it is also the girl that you've been dating for 3 years may walk out on you if you don't propose to her under the exact precise circumstances that she wants, then everything could like collapse, you know. And I don't get that either. And it's just really kind of like, I don't know, it's a really misleading and
Oh my God, what the fuck are we doing to freaking heterosexuality?
I don't know. That's what I'm talking about. I mean, there's like, seriously, like she doesn't. It reminds me of a personal story. I was dating a girl, and I was seeing a girl, and I wanted to I wanted our relationship to be monogamous and exclusive. So I asked her, but I didn't ask her under the correct circumstances and in the way that she wanted, and at the right time. And she got really upset and like walked out on me for like a week, and and then like came back around later on. But it was so weird because I was like, why is this such a big fucking deal? But it was something that I couldn't know, like because that's that whole like, well, can you read my mind? Because that's what you need to do if you. And that is what was going on in this film. Like she wanted things to be a certain way. He didn't give it to her that way. She left him, and then the whole thing started going. The worst part is when he learned about the money, the inheritance, who his grandfather selfishly pushed on him. He didn't tell her about it, and one thing that they did not address, which I thought would have been great, was that he didn't tell her about it, and the reason why I wouldn't have done it would be because I wouldn't want to marry someone because of the inheritance. I would have to like make it would have to be because I want to, and that's sort of like a gift that comes with it. But he didn't tell her because we don't never find out. He says, well, it just didn't happen. So, that's just another thing. But Allison, go ahead.
Okay. Oh boy. It slipped my mind. No, I had something really good. Oh yes.
Was it about asking like for?
Actually, I think it speaks to their insecurity as I mean, if you want to look at it from a purely, I guess, feminine perspective, like no blame, taking like not in a situation of responsibility, but just total analysis. If you're basically learned, I'm not going to blame any particular group for this, but if you basically learned that your only worth is in what you can compel men to do in the context of holding your sexuality or not even just your sexuality, but just companionship out as a carrot, then of course you're going to create these elaborate and ridiculous obstacle courses that men have to jump through because that's how you feel a sense of self-worth. You can't manufacture it any other way because you're told over and over and over again in your life that you have no agency and you're a victim of patriarchy, of rape culture, of male privilege. You're a victim, you're a victim, you're a victim. You have nothing personal that you can contribute to the world or develop in and of yourself because it's all completely subordinate to the great power of men. And that's basically feminism in a nutshell. And you've told that your whole life, and again, the only thing that you get is a sense of personal efficacy or a sense of any kind of having a mark on the world is what you can compel men to do in the context of winning you is as a companion. And so when these women put up these ridiculous emotional and completely self-contradictory obstacle courses, they're really just saying, my God, I'm totally worthless. I have absolutely nothing of myself. I have no sense of anything of myself, and thus I have to pour all of my sense of worth into forcing you to do shit. And that would be my interpretation. Take it away, Hannah.
It goes right back to the thing I keep saying about how we teach our kids to value themselves, where we teach girls that their value is in how other people respond to them, and boys that their value is in what they do for other people. And it sounds to me like this movie is just designed to reinforce that belief that to earn that to earn a relationship with a woman, a man should shape everything about himself around her interests, which in a way it makes it the ultimate gender role promoting chick flick because it's based on that idea of how we teach our kids to value themselves, he's not just providing her with the supposed value of his response being that he will shape himself around her wishes. He's also demonstrating that concept of a man's value being based on what they do for others. It's not empowering to anybody, but it is a female power fantasy. I can make you do this for me.
He even says that in the film, though, in the proposal, that the most interesting thing about himself is her.
Yeah.
He literally says that. I'm like, are you serious, guy? Really? Like, before this, he was really, really upset about.
Well, this is how women maintain a simultaneous power while appearing vulnerable, and the ability to use that appearance of vulnerability and helplessness as a power, as a way of controlling people.
Yeah,
it actually is a pretty traditionalist movie, that one. There's a lot of themes, like with the priest and marriage and everything. And also, what I found kind of interesting, as a side note, and I'll let Rachel take it back, there's all these exes that Jimmy goes to see, and they all have jobs. They all have things that they do. Like, they're actually defined by the thing that they do, aside from their character trait, whether they're opera singers or cops or retail salespeople or whatever. But Anne, I don't know what she does.
I think she was like some kind of a reporter or something.
They never really talked about it, and I watched the movie like a couple hours ago.
Yeah, they said something like a thing in Athens or whatever, but I gathered that she was some kind of a journalist or something like that. But they don't really ever go into it. It's not something that is heavily discussed, but it is.
But is she an ethical journalist?
We don't know. We don't know. All we know is that she makes that scrunched up Renee Zellweger face, and talks endlessly about like, oh my god, my cake. Isn't this the greatest thing ever? But I mean,
so it looks like she swallowed a lemon.
Yes. So here's the interesting thing about all this. He's got a billiard company, which he has built. I mean, I think he got some help. He had some help with funding it from his grandfather, of course. But he certainly was a part of all of that. And so him saying like, oh, the most important thing about myself, or the most interesting part about myself is you, is completely ludicrous. He knows that that's not fucking true. Not really. But it's like, well, it's either this or financial ruin. Seems to be the fucking message of the movie. I think they intended it to be like, oh, marriage isn't that bad. Which is kind of like saying, shoving a dildo up someone's ass, and it's like, oh, it's not so bad after like the first inch. Just bite your lip. Well, at least in terms of the way that he views marriage, and he has this view of bachelorhood as this endless freedom and this love of the pursuit. I don't think he's really interested as much in the at least at first with the relationship aspects, the things of settling down. Those, I think it's the hunt that is most interesting to him for a while. But I think in looking through all this, he sees that much like women often eventually realize that their youth is fleeting. They aren't invincible. And him talking to the priest makes him rethink, like, well, what am I going to be like when I'm older? Do I want somebody to be there to validate my existence or something like that? That seems to be the logic that they were traveling on. But to me, it seems like marriage, the lesser evil. That should be like the name of the movie. Marriage, the lesser evil. Like, because when you're faced with financial ruin, possibly just putting a whole bunch of people out on the street because they suddenly don't have a job anymore, shit. I don't know.
Yeah, it's definitely
Okay.
kind of appeal. Oh, Allison?
Yes, okay. Well, first of all, I'll do a quote from the chat. Maxi0, can I play devil's advocate here and point out that there are many women out there who aren't game-playing cunts?
Sure.
Well, Yeah, you can definitely be a devil's advocate and point that out. I would like to point out that regardless of how prevalent the behavior is, I think it's expressing a way of I don't know, almost like making less of both men and women. Because if you think about it, seeing your effective presence in the world in terms of doing these shitty games is really I wouldn't want to be in that headspace. I wouldn't want to have to reduce everything that I do, and I've developed the skills and talents that I've developed by just focusing on what I can do as a person or my agency as a person. I wouldn't want to have to revoke all that and live in a world where my only sense of self-worth is increasingly strident and shrill and stupid demands of another human being. That's like, yeah, that's a shitty place to be, and it's also a shitty place to be that human being jumping through the hoops. So it's just shitty all around. So it doesn't even matter how many men or women engage in it, because it's just dumb behavior. And I mean, they don't have to stop the behavior on my account, but maybe they could consider stopping the behavior on their own account. It's like,
and they don't have to glorify it in movies as something good. That there are women who are the game playing cunts. They don't have to make the game playing cunts look like the norm.
Yeah. It's just such a.
But I did want to, because the people in chat were complaining about the lack of shilling in the show.
Oh gosh.
Yes, they were saying that there wasn't enough shilling, so apparently I need to shill.
Aww.
And okay, so we do have a fundraiser. It's for physically standing up to censorship in the geek community, and so we're going to have a presence at a convention. It's a convention that we can actually conceivably go to that isn't like hugely expensive, but has a reasonable population of people attending. It's the Calgary Comics and Entertainment Expo, and we're going to be going there. We will be flying the Gamergate flag, and I'm not really a confrontational person. I tend to be very shy, so it's going to be interesting to see what comes of that. Oh boy. And we will be standing up, making a physical stand for censorship and leaving creators, not bullying them to censor themselves or bullying what they create off of the internet. And we've had a recent example of that. Terrell Hunt, who created the Goblins comic book, was on our show, and he described an extensive and protracted campaign of bullying against him and his audience by social justice warriors. So that's the kind of stuff that we're standing up to. And you know what? We're not going to prevent it because they have a right to speak their mind, but we will be there saying, hey, if you're a creator who's being bullied like that, that's not good. And that's not fair. And the people who are doing it do not have the moral high ground. So yeah, just tell them to go fuck themselves. That's what we're planning to do. If you want to make a donation, we've currently got Hannah. We got Hannah's travel itinerary is all settled. She's coming, so yay. We're still trying to get Anna, Rachel, and Brian there, and they would be very, very thrilled if they could go. So it's www.feedthebadger.com. I do have a little bit of budgetary details that I put up there. The actual cost of the entire event is more like $15,000, but because Karen, myself, and Mike are basically paying for ourselves and others, we're only asking for about $8,000. Essentially, we pretty much paid as much as we can ourselves. And then we're asking you for the rest, for the people who aren't capable of pitching in that way. Not anything about them, but you know, it's just different monetary situations.
The rest of us who live in the boonies.
Yeah, and you have
Except
to fly.
for Brian, who lives in Chicago.
In Chicago with his passport privilege. My God, Brian, check your passport privilege.
Yeah.
The rest of us have to wait like 5 weeks. Anyway, so if you wanna donate to see that happen, please do. It's feedthebadger.com. That's feedthebadger.com, and every little bit helps. You know, Karen's basically chipped in about $1,000. So, you know, if you're listening now, maybe you could do $5. Thanks. Thanks to everyone who's donated so far. Okay, let's get on with the show.
Okay.
Well, can we discuss like the worst of the worst that we know of in terms of chick flicks?
I thought Notting Hill was it for me.
Okay, wait.
I propose
a better one. I propose a worse one.
All right.
The
Ones you
Switch.
can actually remember at all.
The Switch with Jennifer Aniston and some other guy I can't remember. Basically, the general plot is I'm Jennifer Aniston and I have this guy who I've completely friend zoned for years, and like he doesn't, and you know, I'm not going to acknowledge the fact that he totally is in love with me or anything like that. And because I've decided that, you know, I've waited long enough to find Mr. Right and it didn't happen, I'm gonna try and have a baby, and I'm going to have like this sperm donor sperm like warming up in the bathroom, and then my friend, who's totally drunk off of his ass and wanders in, is going to accidentally dump the sperm down the sink and then refill it with his own in a drunken stupor. After Jennifer Aniston had some kind of weird feminist Earth Mother party thing. And then let's make a movie where we engage in the awkwardness that follows from her friend realizing that interacting with her son, who is just like this incredible pessimist, just like very awkward, precocious child who seemingly like him in many ways.
Wow.
Yeah, and then you realize that there's like no romantic tension or anything, no chemistry going on between the actors whatsoever. It's like one wet blanket and just the awkwardness of everything. It just, oh god,
That's awful. That sounds like a terrible movie.
Yes.
All right, yeah, you win. I don't think I can top it. There was one I wanted to mention that I think that it's kind of a chick flick, but it's sort of a bit unconventional. It came out recently. It was directed by Joseph Gordon-Levitt. It was actually his debut as a director. It was called Don John, and essentially it was about this guy who was like the archetypal, like, you know, New Jersey dude bro who went to clubs, worked out, you know, had the car. His father, who was played masterfully by Tony Danza, who was my favorite character, you know, taught him all of his dude bro ways, and he's also got a porn addiction, and he rates girls on like a, you know, scale of 1 to 10, and he only goes after dimes, as he calls them. So he's like this lady killer, like alpha male guy, and he meets Scarlett Johansson, who is like this super hot chick that he sees in a club, and you know, they start dating or whatever, but she makes him wait, you know, for the sex. And Scarlett Johansson's character has an obsession with romantic films, chick flicks, actually. And the thing that the film attempts to discuss, because then it goes in another direction, and he like goes to night school. But the thing that some of the stuff that happens is that while he's dating Scarlett Johansson, she tries to get him to change. She like slowly starts to change him. So she does things like, you know, she gets him to dress a different way. She wants him to be, you know, like do something more with his career. She wants him to get a better education, so she pushes for him to go to night school. And the thing that she uses to get him to do this is the promise of sex. And even though he used to get sex all the time, he never felt that he got sex the way that porn does sex. Like, he basically conflated pornography and the sex that happens there with sex that happens in real life, and so it, like, in the film's context, it ruins his expectations, sexual expectations. But with her, and maybe it's because she made him wait, we don't really know, it's like perfect, right? So he basically does everything. He goes to college, he starts changing his life. And eventually it comes to pass, he learns that she is changing him because she's trying to make him into the man that she wants, that matches her expectations of what a man is supposed to be, which is something that she's getting from her chick flicks. So there is a thing where you have two people who are controlled by their media that they tend to consume, and how it interacts with how they participate in their relationship. So it has a toxic effect. But that's sort of like what physically or that's what actually happens in the film, but they don't actually address it from her perspective. Like, he doesn't actually say, you know, it never comes up that this is where that comes from. It's sort of implied. But his obsession with porn it's pretty much laid out bare, you know, for everyone to see. So one of the things that I thought was really interesting about Don John, and I wouldn't say it was a great movie, but if you can watch it on Netflix, then why the fuck not? Was that we have the idea that porn for men is somehow synonymous with romantic films or romances for women, like romantic films. And I don't see the equivalence there, but that's sort of like what this film's trying to do. And he is the one that makes this discovery, makes a reform, changes his life, sort of like adapts and all that. And she doesn't. She ends up not being involved with him, and he ends up with Julianne Moore, who's like a woman he meets at when he starts going to night school, and she's the one who like gets him to stop, you know, to like sort of like, you know, break his porn obsession. And she also teaches him how like love makes sex better and all this sort of. So she basically fixes the broken baby bird, who she wouldn't have been attracted to in the first place if he wasn't like at the gym all the time and like had the nice car and all that other shit. So, but yeah, that was Don John in a nutshell. Anna?
Well, sounds like still like 100% anti-porn propaganda, because as you say yourself, I mean, maybe I haven't seen the movie, so I could be misunderstanding, but the chick flick narrative is what got him to improve his life, right?
Oh, it was absolutely. I mean, Julianne Moore did not in so many words, but you could see that her character was probably like a sex-positive feminist of some kind. Just in terms of like, you know, the kinds of things that she did and like the way that her language was and her mannerism. And we all know this. So this is the thing too that's important to know. You know, art reflects life unless the people who are making it are trying to put something political in their work, or something cultural, or something sociological. And we know that Joseph Gordon-Levitt is an outspoken feminist, and this is his movie. So he's trying to make a statement. And part of it is a lot of what the movie is about is, you know, how the patriarchy hurts men too, because there's a thing about him, you know, not being like honest with his feelings, and she helps him do that because, you know, like that's like the whole like being a man means this, and, you know, it helps him break that and all this. So, yes. Okay, Anna, I'm sorry. I felt like I cut you off.
Oh, no, it just seems like, I mean, it just seems like entirely propaganda from start to finish that, you know, porn is bad. Girls that like chick flicks will make you into a better man, so hurry chick flicks, and then eventually hook up with a mature feminist who will explain to you that love and sex is better than, you know, doing whatever it is you were doing, you stupid male. Your life is better now, and it's just like, what?
That's pretty much it. That actually reminds me of something else as a little side note. You know, there's a lot of like feminists often complain about female body image and how, you know, like if you look at supermodels, they're all skinny and, you know, they all have the same, they're all like the same size or whatever, and this is what men want and this is what men think they're entitled to. But actually, the ironic thing about it is that I think that men, supermodels and stuff like that, that's not something that men specifically want as a whole. I think that's something that the industry puts out there that to sell clothing mainly
for women.
For women, yes.
Women can imagine themselves looking like those models do in those clothes, therefore buy the clothes because they think they're going to look like that. It's entirely made by women for women.
Yes, and if you want a more realistic view of what men like, you should look at porn. And if you look at porn, you look at like porn sites that have a lot of different channels, as it were, for different kinds of women, you'll see that there is an enormous amount of variety that guys like. Curvy women, thin women, you know, they go for black women, big, even large women, Latina women, Asians. Women. Like there's some, I mean, like there's hirsute women, if that's your bag. I mean, there's guys out there that like all of that, and I think porn is actually a better place to measure male sexual preference than like the mainstream media. I think the mainstream media is pretty feminized in many ways, and not really a good way to look if you want to get an idea.
In a healthy way. Not a really healthy way, unfortunately. And that's the thing I've started to notice more and more. And but I'll let you finish, Brian.
No, that was it. I was just saying, like, you know, I think porn. If you go to porn, you see what guys like. You see what's the most popular different kinds of porn sites or porn spaces, and that's what guys like, and girls that go to those spaces as well.
Absolutely.
So, you know, and you'd be surprised. Like, there's romantic porn. A lot of guys like that too. Again, another misnomer, because Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character only likes a specific kind of porn, and he's supposed to represent the everyman dude bro, you know. And I think that I kind of reject that idea. I entirely reject that idea, just, you know, in general. So.
Well, not every man is a dude bro, and that's the thing that's interesting in this. Because I find very often that even guys in these chick flicks, they don't often have a personality. They're just there to fit a specific role, and that I find so incredibly frustrating. And I think this is one of the reasons why certain stories where like Pride and Prejudice continue on, even though I find the very story to be incredibly insufferable. It tells you a great deal about women and what they look for in these kinds of romantic stories, which is, and I think Karen described it when she was talking about how she goes about writing stories. Women want to have this air of mystery around a guy. They want to know what he's thinking, and it doesn't have to be a personality, but the possible promise of one. That really is this allure in these kinds of romantic stories. It's he has one, but you don't know what it is. It's trying to figure him out. And
I want to jump in just for a minute and point out there is no such thing as a dude bro. Dude bros do not exist. It's a one-dimensional stereotype that hipsters invented to ridicule men who don't conform to their standards for behavior. That is not a description, a full description of real people. Real people are not one-dimensional.
No, absolutely not. And that's actually what Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character is.
I have to disagree. I'm one-dimensional.
You are not.
Baloney.
No,
Allison. No, you're not Allison. Stop
yes, I am. Quiet. I totally.
Well,
I call you five-dimensional.
When we're cartoon anthropomorphic characters on Dr. Random McCam's show, we're two-dimensional.
Okay, but okay, I can be five-dimensional, but my other dimensions have curled into a size that is imperceptible. Or actually, well, that would be 4 dimensions. So I just have the never. You know what? I'm just.
Allison is the ultimate dude bro.
You know. To give you an example of what I'm talking about, though, with the whole air of mystery, like what about Censor Duck? Does Censor Duck have a personality? No, but there's the promise of some kind of personality.
I think you need to ask Mike if Censor Duck has a personality.
Do we know?
Well, I don't know. I think Mike either has passed out on his desk or he's just so.
And that's fine. That's fine.
I don't know, Mike.
I didn't invent Censor Duck. I'm not the.
You did, Allison.
Yeah,
I'm not
but
the contatrix of the Censor Duck.
I could be biased. Okay, yeah, no, I don't know. The promise of a personality. Okay, maybe you're right.
The promise of a personality seems to be more alluring than an actual personality in these films, in these chick flicks. The promise that there's a reason for why somebody is a certain way. It can't ever just be, oh, they're just an asshole, or they just enjoy being an asshole, or something like that. There's got to be some reason. I gotta unpack. I gotta find out, like his poor tortured soul, or something like that, or her poor tortured soul. There's got to be a reason why she's a cunt. I mean, there might be, but it might not be a very good reason. And that's the thing. It's the promise. It's the allure. The possibility that there's something beyond the cuntness. And that's what draws these people in. That's every Twilight film is like Bella. It's like, oh my God, Edward. Like there's probably something there beyond the fact that he's just very quiet and cold and wants to suck my blood. There's got to be something there beyond this just unrealistic stoicness.
Well,
And relationship problems.
there is something that Karen said once that I've observed in a lot of other things. Like, you know how when I've observed that feminists, when they want to like talk about doing things like allowing men to feel and to express themselves, and like trying to reform their bad behavior through education, indoctrination, whatever you want to call it, away from what they perceive to be toxic masculinity, is what they call that. And there is a relationship between that I've observed, and there is that attraction that many women have to bad men to fix them, right? Like let's say broken baby birds, like Christian Greys. Usually rich, handsome, powerful, high-status men that are abusive assholes, or or whatever, and they want to be with them because they like the aggression, they like the status, they like the money, they like that he has a nice body, that he has a big cock, whatever it is. But then all the stuff that's wrong with him, they want to fix it, and that's what feminism does too. That's why it always looks up when it talks about the gaps between men and women. It looks towards the top because the higher status men are the ones that it's concerned with. And it goes back to a quote that Karen said once, was that feminism is female nature politicized. And then again, this won't apply to all women, but I think that general lowest common denominator, female nature, when given political power, to the extent that it has, will do things like this.
Well, I think it's best to say that men, when they want to fix something, they say, I'm going to go get myself a fixer-upper car, and we're going to fix up this classic or something like that. And women say, I'm going to go get this broken baby bird of a man, like, who has like all of these specific things that I think are completely perfect, and I'm going to try and change him and mold him into like my ideal guy. It's just so incredibly ridiculous and abusive, because they honestly believe that they can train a guy, and sometimes they do. Sometimes they actually succeed, and you see this poor, broken individual who is afraid to be himself or assert himself, and he's just this castrated dude in a relationship where, she pretty much bullies him into everything, and he just kind of plays this passive role. I guess if some people enjoy that sort of thing, I don't know. But I personally think it's abusive. I'm of the opinion that, a good relationship is one where people, they each take equal part in a relationship, and they care about that person. They love them for who they are and not who they think that they can be. All the things that they love. They don't just like the appearance of the couch. They like all the crumbs down in the cushions. You gotta love everything about them, or at least accept those aspects of their personality as a part of who they are.
Well, it is abusive because it's basically taking somebody with qualities that they feel like they can exploit that are mixed in with qualities that are inconvenient to them because they're individual qualities. They're qualities that are not theirs to exploit. And so what they're basically doing by this is they're taking this person and they're just chipping away at everything that isn't exploitable, and trying to leave behind only that which they can make use of. So, that really is abusive. It's a lot like taming a pack animal, taming an animal for any type of labor. It's not treating them like they're a real person.
I agree, and it is incredibly abusive. It's not something that you want to do. And if you want to see an example of some of the most ridiculous aspects of women acting in this way in a movie, is Bride Wars. Because there was like the most disgusting part of that movie was, I think, maybe like 15 minutes in, and they finally get proposed to, and these women are talking and bragging about the cut of the diamond and what kind, like the setting and everything like that. Like they know so much about diamonds, and by the way, neither of them are jewelers, but they know so much about diamonds, and they are so obsessed with weddings that they're just remarking on the cut and the setting and the style of it and how big it is and the clarity of the jewel. Like, Jesus Christ! I mean, I have some knowledge of that stuff because I was trying to get into basic, jewelry making, but holy fuck! I mean, these women are not in that kind of field. I mean, it's like the utmost kind of gold diggery. It's ridiculous. It's comical even. But yeah.
I say we do jazz hands and then end it.
All
Okay.
right. I don't have a camera, but
I feel like we're gonna have to go back. We're gonna have to do this again. We're
Yeah.
gonna
You
have
have
to.
to just- You'll just have to telepathically project the notion of jazz hands there, Brian.
I'm just gonna clap and make.
I'm jazz handing right now.
Jazz hands trigger me. I'm gonna clap. Triggered.
Great. Give everybody a clap.
Triggered.
Oh my God.
Where is the
My
honey
applause.
badgers give their audience the clap?
I used to do jazz hands all the time until I took an internet to the knee.
The internet to the knee.
I'm not gonna do.
Well,
the,
I used to
I put this thing in front of my camera so that you wouldn't be able to see me if it accidentally turned on. I don't know if you can actually see it either.
Yeah, I could see something. You only speculate onto what, but anyway, here we go.
It's a card. Jim Warren's Beyond Bizarre.
Okay, come on, I can't be the only idiot here. Come on, someone else do this.
No, I look like shit right now. Okay, maybe leave you hanging. Holy shit.
Leave you hanging doing this stupid shit.
No jazz hands for me.
Everything looks terrible on me right now. Hold on.
Oh, come on.
Well, I'm trying to find the thingy that allows me to turn on camera. It's been weird.
While you guys figure that out, I'm gonna start to sign out. So think of it like the end, the rolling end credits for Beverly Hillbillies, where people are just endlessly waving.
That's not even jazz hands. You have to have one higher than the other.
Oh,
Okay.
sorry.
You have to lean like shoulder down.
Fuck, I just fell off. Alright, ouch. God, they're painful.
All right. So thanks for joining us for the show today. I wanted to ask you guys.
My arms are getting tired, Brian.
Okay. I've observed that. I'm sorry. If you get tired, just stop. What we're talking about, we've been talking about these chick flicks. We
can't
know
do
that
the multi-level jazz hands.
art just imitates life, right? So when we see like trends in film or any of our other media, I think it's not like harmful to look and see like, well, what's changed in our culture that's making this, the way it is. So when we were talking about these chick flicks, and I've noticed that a lot of them, the ones that are the more annoying, troublesome ones, are from like the 90s, and like even more recently. What do you think it says about our culture? Because when we look at films from like the 40s and 50s, the way that they did it was very good. What is it? What's changed? And you guys tell me what your thoughts are in terms of how this may have reflected.
Well, I can't simulate rolling on the ground on fire, but maybe choking. Choking work.
Oh yeah, you gotta do that. And yeah, let's just give us your thoughts on that. And thanks for joining us today on the show. What's that? Is that a llama? Oh.
Yes, it is. It's an alpaca.
It's an
okay. So Rachel is showing us her alpaca, and
yes.
I'm attempting to jazz hand us out. And yes, please do
Alpaca
donate to our fundraiser. I'm sorry that I've totally bombed Brian's soliloquy at the end. But yeah, it's www.feedthebadger.com. I mean, this particular ending has to be the most chaotic ever, you have to admit.
Yeah, no, I think so. And I think, was that Hannah's DM screen? So yeah, I don't know, give us your thoughts. And we're done. We'll see you tomorrow night for the next show.